Alright everyone, get those worksheets out. Today we're going to be talking about animals and their relationships, focusing on the standard 6.ls.3. Describe specific relationships, predator, prey, consumer, producer, parasite, host, and symbiotic relationships between organisms. Construct an explanation that predicts why patterns of interactions develop between organisms in an ecosystem. The learning objectives for this lesson are: the students will be able to identify all types of relationships between animals, the students will be able to provide examples of each type of relationship, and the students will be able to explain the effects animal relationships have on the animal and on the environment. The types of relationships that we'll be discussing today are predator-prey relationships, consumer-producer relationships, and symbiotic relationships, which include mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. We'll even find out what type of relationship is displayed in this picture. Now, the first relationship we're discussing is predator-prey relationship. A predator is an organism that gets its food by killing and consuming other organisms. A prey is an organism that is consumed by a predator as food. In the movie Zootopia, we can see a predator and prey do the opposite of this and be friends, as the fox is typically the predator and consumes the rabbit for food, and the rabbit is therefore the prey. Let's look at another example. In this case, the predator is a grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear consumes and uses these organisms for its energy, aka berries, deer, and he even likes to consume fish. We can see in here how there's one predator, although there are three preys, because the predator consumes all different three types of organisms. In this example, we see a caterpillar and a leaf. Now, I want you all to pause the video and try and identify which one is the predator and which one is the prey. Have you guessed yet? If you guessed that the caterpillar was the predator, you were correct, and therefore that means that the leaf is the prey. Now, there are a few things that we need to know about predator and prey relationships. Predators and preys are not only limited to animals, they can also be plants too. Predators and prey also evolve together. The predators evolve in order to consume prey more efficiently, while the prey evolve in order to avoid consumption by predators. Now, let's look at an example of evolution. The Galapagos tortoise was the predator, and its prey was the cactus. And the Galapagos tortoise evolved in a way to grow a longer neck so that it could reach the top branches of the cactus. But then the cactus evolved to grow higher branches so then the tortoise would not be able to reach it. And we can see in this example that the Galapagos tortoise evolved in order to be able to consume more. The cactus evolved in a way to avoid consumption. Now let's move on into our next type of relationship, which is consumer and producer relationship. A consumer is an organism that receives its nutrients and energy by consuming other organisms. Predators are always consumers and are typically animals. A producer is an organism that gets its nutrients and energy by producing it itself. Producers are typically plants who provide nutrients for themselves through photosynthesis. Now, when we talk about consumers, we need to know that there are three different types of consumers. There are primary consumers, which are herbivores, who only get their energies from plants and only eat plants. The secondary consumers are next, and they are omnivores, who get their energies from plants and animals. And lastly, we have tertiary consumers, which are carnivores, who get their energy from animals only. An example of a herbivore is a squirrel, because it only eats plants. An example of an omnivore is a bear, because it eats plants and animals. And an example of a carnivore is a snake, because it only eats animals. Alright, let's look at some more examples. Now in this graph you see it split up into producers and consumers. Let's talk about the producers first. Now the producers are all on the left-hand side of this line. And as we can see with all the producers, they are all typically plants. Everyone in this example is a plant, and they're able to turn the energy from the sun into energy that they need to survive. On the right-hand side of the line, we see that there are consumers. Now, in these consumers, we can look at the examples, and we see that they're all animals. And we can look for our specific types of consumers. As we know, the lion is a carnivore because he only eats meat. That means that he's a tertiary consumer, which we'll represent with 3. Then we'll move on to the rabbits, which we know are herbivores because they only eat plants. That makes them a primary consumer. And then we'll move to the bear, which we know is an omnivore, therefore he's a secondary consumer. Now, when we talk about consumers and producers, we also need to know the term decomposers. Decomposers are usually paired with producers and consumers. They are an animal or an organism that returns the energy to the producer level by scavenging. Some examples of decomposers are fungi, vultures, and bacteria. We can look in this image to see the worm, the mushroom, and the insects and bacteria are also more examples of decomposers. Now let's apply all the terms that we've learned into one diagram and try and represent how they all affect the environment. This is called an energy pyramid, and we use it to represent how energy flows through the environment. In the pyramid, you can see that most of the energy is on the bottom, and that the energy slowly gets less and less until we reach the top where it is in a small triangle. All of our energy comes from the sun. The sun gives 100% of its energy to the producers, and the producers are able to turn this energy from sunlight into nutrients through a process called photosynthesis. This is why most producers are plants, because only plants can perform photosynthesis. Now the producers are able to give their energy and nutrients to the primary consumers, and the primary consumers are called primary because they are closest to the producers. In this case, they're crickets, and they only get 10% of the energy of the grass that they eat. Now the crickets go up to the secondary consumers, who are 2 levels away from producers, therefore they are secondary. In this case, they are rats and mice, and they only get 1% of the energy that was originally had in the grass. Now, the owl eats the mice, and therefore it's a tertiary consumer. It is a 3rd level away from producers, and it only gets 0.1% of the energy from the producers. Now, after all these organisms die, the cockroach is able to he is the decomposer, and he takes all of the dead nutrients who have wasted their energy and is able to give back to the producers in the form of dirt, which I tried to draw here, don't mind that. And he gives it back to the producers so they're able to use it as nutrients yet again, and it starts in the cycle all over again. We can also see predators and prey, as the owl is the predator to the mice, who are the prey. The mice are the predator to the crickets, who are the prey, and the crickets are the predators to the grass, who are the prey. Let's move on to the next type of relationship, symbiotic relationships. Now, symbiotic relationships, we need to know what symbiotic is. And symbiotic comes from symbiosis, which means a close relationship between 2 organisms where at least one organism benefits. There are 3 types of symbiotic relationships. There is mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. The first relationship we're going to look at is mutualism. Mutualism is a symbiotic relationship in which both organisms benefit. The organisms that benefit in this relationship are both, and the other organism's condition is also benefiting. An example of mutualism is Nemo. Nemo and his father are both clownfish, and they live in anemone. Anemone is a plant, and it provides for the clownfish by providing protection from it from other creatures, while the clownfish provide for the anemone by protecting it from other creatures as well and cleaning it. This is an example of mutualism because both the clownfish, Nemo, and the anemone benefit in this relationship. The next relationship is commensalism. Commensalism is a symbiotic relationship in which one organism benefits while the other species is not affected. The organisms that benefit in this relationship are one, and the other organism's condition is not affected. An example of this is the hermit crab, as the hermit crab takes the shells from dead snails to provide protection for itself. This is an example because the hermit crab benefits by getting a shelter and a home, while the snail does not benefit or get harmed because it is dead and cannot be hurt. The last relationship is parasitism. Parasitism is a symbiotic relationship in which one organism benefits while the other one is harmed. In parasitism, the organisms that benefit is one, and the other organism's condition is harmed. In this example, we can see that the fleas are gaining nutrients and shelter from the dog, while the dog is getting nutrients taken away from it and being irritated. In this, the fleas are being benefited, and the dog is being harmed, showing that it is a proper example of parasitism. Parasitism, we need to talk about a new kind of relationship, which is parasite and host. A parasite is an organism that is dependent on another organism and does not help the other organism. A host is an organism that is a parasite lives on and harms. If we look back at the example of the dog and the flea, we can tell that the flea is the parasite in this scenario, because it takes nutrients and uses the dog for shelter. And then the dog in this scenario is the host because it is being depleted and harmed in this relationship. Let's look at some more examples. In this example, the bee uses the flower for nutrients, but as it gets its nutrients from the flower, it gets pollen on its body and legs, and when it flies away, it spreads the pollen to fertilizing other flowers and spreading more flowers. What kind of relationship is this? It is mutualism. It is mutualism because both the bee benefits by getting nutrients and the flower benefits by getting its pollen spread and fertilizing other flowers. In this next example, we see a tree frog using a flower for shelter. Now, in this case, the tree frog uses the flower for shelter to protect itself from predators, and nothing happens to the flower in return. What kind of relationship is this? It is commensalism because the tree frog benefits in this relationship and nothing happens to the flower or plant. Therefore, one is benefiting and one has no effect. In our last example, we have a mosquito and a human. In this relationship, the mosquito uses the human for nutrients and even as for shelter when the human is moving, and the mosquito gets its nutrients through the blood. Then the human is being harmed because the human loses its nutrients and results in an uncomfortable bug bite. What kind of relationship is this? It is parasitism. It's parasitism because the mosquito is being benefited and the human is being harmed because the mosquito gets its nutrients and the human is harmed. Therefore, the mosquito is the parasite and the human is the host. Now we're going to look at the relationship's effect on the environment. The populations of different organisms affect other populations. A food web demonstrates how all organisms are connected in an environment. Here is an example of a food web. In this, you can see that there are many different levels in many different animals. These levels are called trophic levels, and in it we can see that there are producers, which we've talked about, and those are the plants that are able to take the sun's energy and produce it into their own nutrients. And these producers then go to primary consumers, which is represented by 1, and these primary consumers are all in blue, so the slug, the fly, the carp, and the prawn. And also a little bit of the turtle, because the turtle also gets nutrients from a plant, as you can see with this arrow. The arrows point to the predators, and the prey is on the other side of the arrow. This shows that the animals eat these as prey. As we can see, these plants all go to all of the primary consumers. Then these primary consumers go to the secondary consumers, or the purple animals. And we see this as all these animals are consumed by the purple animals. The purple animals here include the turtle, the dragonfly, the frog, and the trout, and the kingfisher. These are all the secondary consumers. The last level on this food web is the 4th level, or the tertiary consumers, which are all the colors in orange. In this we can see that the snake, the frog, and the king's pen are tertiary consumers. We know this because the frog is eaten by the kingfisher and by the snake, and the frog itself eats the dragonfly and the fly, making it also a tertiary consumer. Now let's say that the frog population all of a sudden increases or goes up. Then if the frog population goes up, the snake, a predator of the frog, its population will also increase or go up. And another predator of the frog, the kingfisher, his population will also go up because he'll have more prey to feed on. And if the kingfisher's population goes up, then that means that the trout's population will go down. That is because the kingfisher's prey is a trout, and the more kingfisher there are, the less trout there will be. Now, if the trout's population goes down, that means that it will no longer be a predator to the carp, and the carp's population will go down as well. It'll also, the less carp there are means that the trout population will go down even further. And if it goes down even further, this can relate back to the kingfisher, whose population will then go back down. With this demonstration, we can see how all the populations are connected to each other and how each organism's population affects the other one, influencing how the whole environment works. Now, we get to talk about the animals and their relationships project. Yay! Now, the rubric for this project and all the requirements are on Canvas, and that's where you'll go and figure out how to do it. But you'll need to know where to make your project on, and that is iMovie. So I've included a tutorial at the end of this lesson for you to use to be able to make your project if you're not familiar with iMovie already.
Alright, so I'm going to teach you guys how to use iMovie. This is on my phone, which you'll also be able to see on the iPads, or if you have it on a laptop, you can use it there as well. So when you first download it, this will pop up. You'll just click continue. And then you want to create a new project by pushing the plus sign, and it'll ask if you want to make a movie or trailer. I find it easier to use a movie, but if you want to use a trailer, you can go ahead and venture that. So you'll click movie, and it'll ask you to add some things to create your movie. So this is where you'll have some things already downloaded, but I'll just do a demonstration, and on this demonstration I have some photos. So I pushed the go back button and I clicked my photos. I went to all, and then I already had these photos of some turtles that I want to put in there, maybe a graph, another infographic picture, and that looks like about all that I want right now. So I'll go ahead and click create movie, and then I'll put together the photos in a way it thinks that it wants me to do. Now, if I want to add more media, I can just click this plus sign right here, and then I will click, if you want to add some videos, you can click the photos thing again, and then you can scroll down and find videos, or you can just look through your photos to find some. Audio, if there's music downloaded on it, or if you want a soundtrack, there's soundtracks that they can use for free without copyright, so you can just download them and listen to them. So I like this one. I'm going to choose this one, and it'll just pop in right there, nice and conveniently. Now, since you guys will be making a movie about a species and their relationships, the requirements are a title page. So I'm going to show you how to make a title page right now. I push the plus arrow, I'm going back with audio, and then I'm going back again. And then to do that, I'm going to click photos, and I'm going to want an all black photo, there we go. And I already have a black photo, so I'm just going to do this one. And then I'm going to click the download button, and then I'm going to add it. So now I have a black screen, and this will be very nice to put text on. So if you click this black screen, it'll be highlighted in yellow, and then you'll click the text option. Do you see the T down the bottom right hand corner? I'm clicking that, and then it'll give you a bunch of different text styles that you can do, and it'll show you the different types of fonts and the different types of things that'll come. So I think this one is cool. So after you do that, what you'll do is, you see it says titled text here. You're going to click that, and then you'll be able to edit the text. So this is the animal and their relationships project. So I'm going to go ahead and type that. Animals and their relationships. And whatever you want your title to be, you can make it that. And then look, now when I play it, it has background music and it has a title. I did that all in, what, 30 seconds? And look, now it has photos. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to try and add a voiceover. So you can't just have these photos here. You also have to be able to have a voiceover and describe what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus sign. I'm going to go back because it's still on photos. And then you can see that your other options are camera, so you can take a live photo. Files, if you have something downloaded on your phone. But we're using the voiceover. So you're going to click the one with the little microphone that says voiceover. And then you see here it says ready to record. So what you'll do is, when you're ready to record, you'll pick the place that you want it to start recording. So you see this line in the middle of the page and how it's set right here. That's because I had it set before when I clicked the plus sign. So I wanted to start talking on this photo and when it popped up. So now when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and click record. Alright, and then it gives me 3 seconds. This is a picture of the Galapagos tortoise. As you can see, he's looking at the cactus very hungry. And now you see the recording pops right in there, and you can click accept after you're done if you like what you did, and then we can go ahead and watch our first little clip of our movie. Good background music. This is a picture of the Galapagos tortoise. As you can see, he's looking at the cactus very hungry. There we go. And then look at that. We're making a professional movie. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can even click these little tiny triangle things together right there. And you can choose what kind of transition you want or how long you want it to be. So if you want it to be just 1 second in basic, that is perfectly fine. No points will be counted off there. But you can also click, you can do the slide transition, you can do the wipe, and you can do the fade, whichever one you prefer. And then that'll change, so then see, it pops up like this instead. Now, if you need to change the length of a photo because you spoke a lot longer and you need the photo to go a lot longer, you can click this yellow bar and you see as I drag it this way, it makes it longer, and as I drag it this way, it makes it a shorter amount of time that they're going to play it for, okay? I like to keep it for the photo length and then for the recording length as well, just to make it nice and smooth. Now, if you want to do some more editing on the photos, you can click the photos and you can go to editing. You can put some pretty different filters on it. You can do this, and once you see up here it says key burns enabled, that means that it's going to be moving. So if you disable that, then you see as I play it, it just stays still the whole time. But I like it what it looks like when it moves. So I enabled it, and now when it plays, it's going to slowly move like this, and that way it just gives more life to your presentation, okay? And now at the end, you do need to do a resources page. So what I need everyone to do is to do the same thing. You'll go to your photos and videos, you'll go back to photos, and then you'll find that black photo that you saved and you'll add it in towards the end, and then you'll add credits on it. So you'll do the same thing. You'll go ahead and go add the text button, and then you'll just click a standard one. There you go. And then I like to do one with just one simple one. There we go. And then you'll go ahead and put your sources. So let's say you used Wikipedia, which we all know not to use because it's not reliable. Wikipedia.com. And then that way you have your resources page, okay? Alrighty, now this was just a quick little intro to it. So if you need any more help, this is the basic stuff, then let me know. You can send me a quick email. You can ask me in class. And yeah, I hope you guys have fun with your project.
And the last note, I did include an example of what your project should look like on the project assignment page. If you need to follow that link to go look at what your example is, go ahead and use that link. Thanks so much for watching!